I'm going to show my ignorance here because I didn't know the answer to this question for a long time. I was curious about it, but I'm asking probably the wrong group of people because you all probably know. But how much does a pound cake weigh? Does anyone know how much a pound cake weighs? Not the people I've already talked to about this.
Should be a pound.
See, that's what I thought. That makes sense, right? But it isn't. It weighs about 4 pounds because it needs a pound of flour, a pound of eggs, a pound of sugar, and a pound of butter. So that's, I thought it was maybe it cost a pound for the ingredients based on somewhere in England, but it only has 4 ingredients. But if you leave one ingredient out, it's probably not going to taste very good. It's probably not going to bake up. It's probably not going to be any good at all. Bear with me. Turn to Revelation chapter 3. See how this has anything to do with anything. But all the ingredients were necessary. Revelation chapter 1, verse 3 says, "Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand." We've heard this verse several times in the last few weeks, and while I was sitting there listening, a word caught my mind and my attention, and I wrote down on a piece of paper to look at this verse and study it out. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. I don't think we're supposed to study it out while the brother's preaching, although there's a tendency to sometimes follow a rabbit around while we hear, but to put our full attention to the word as is being preached, but go back and look at it and study it and think about it. But the word that stuck out to me was the word "and." It's sometimes we can read the word "and" it's a connecting word giving the object different but true predicates. Turn to 2 Timothy 3. I'll give you an example of what I'm thinking about here. And we do this. I mean, Brother Jamie does it, Brother Gene does it. We do it at times, and it's perfectly legitimate. 2 Timothy 3:16 says, "All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness." Now, sometimes for emphasis, it can be read, "All Scripture is given by the inspiration of God, and all Scripture is profitable for doctrine, and all Scripture is profitable for reproof, and all..." Did I do something wrong? Let me go back. 2 Timothy 3:16, when you have these "ands," sometimes you can take that object again and put it together with each and every one of those predicates. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God, and sometimes we can read, "and all Scripture is profitable for doctrine, and all Scripture is profitable for reproof, and all Scripture is profitable for correction, and all Scripture is profitable for instruction in righteousness." All of those things are true. Every single one of those, because each component is true. But in this verse, in chapter 1, verse 3 of Revelation, we can't say that each one of those things is true. We can't say, "Blessed is he that readeth," because those other "ands" have got to be attached to it. We can't say, "Blessed is he that heareth the words," and we can't say, "Blessed is he that keepeth," in the sense of what this verse is trying to tell us. There's another "and" after we read, "Blessed is he that readeth." Excuse me. So all 3 ingredients have got to be present for the blessing as defined here to take place. It doesn't mean we're not blessed when we read the word. We know that from other places. But in the context of what what we're being taught here in the context of the book of the revelation of Jesus Christ, these three things are told to us. They have to all be there in order to truly attain the blessing. So just like the ingredients of the pound cake, we can't leave one out and still get the finished pound cake and have it be edible. So I thought what we would do is look at the actual three words that are the objects here, or the points. Blessed is he that readeth. Well, if you look at the meaning of the word, it's not just reading. How many times have we read something and get to the end of it and say, I have no idea what I just read? I mean, it happens. We go back and have to read it again, and sometimes we read it the second time. We still don't know what it is we read. It doesn't make sense. The word that is translated readeth here has the idea of conveying knowing. The idea of knowing what it is that was written there. It means that you can remember what it says, even though you may not actually understand what it is I read. Okay, if you look at Revelation, let's give an example, 15, Revelation 15. Revelation 15, verse 1 says, And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that hath gotten victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, that stand on the sea of glass, having harps of gold, of God. Now, I've read Revelation for years, and I can honestly tell you that I have read this verse many, many times, know what the words say, and not understand what it means. So I think what we're seeing here in verse 3 of chapter 1 is the reading, knowing it's there, knowing what the words say. And then at some time we can get an understanding. I never knew what the wheels in the eyes and the wheels of Ezekiel's prophecy meant. Brother Gene has helped us to understand and to put it in a context that makes some sense to us. Let's look at the second word. So, blessed is he that readeth. That means you know what is written there. Second word is, and they that hear the words of this prophecy. Well, it's not talking about this, what's going in and whether you actually sense the hearing. How many times have you seen a mother, or how many times have you said to a child, did you hear me? Well, of course they heard you. The question was not whether or not they heard, but whether or not they heeded that which was said. Did you hear me when I told you to make your bed? Well, of course they heard, but it wasn't done. So they have to say, well, it implies that the understanding or the knowing did not lead to an obeying. And finally, I look at this last word, keep. And I think I've talked about the word keep in the past. When we say the word keep, we're talking about to continue to possess something. Okay, I'm keeping something. I'm going to continue to possess it. But there's more to just keeping something. It has the idea of guarding something. Not necessarily to prevent something from escaping, but to guard it. And more importantly, to preserve it, to keep it from harm, to maintain a possession to such a degree that we hold it as a treasure. So in 1611 King James English, the word used, keep, was used commonly as the place, the most protected place in a palace in which were stored the treasures of the kingdom. So when you come back to this verse, which says, "Blessed is he that readeth, and he that heareth the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand." You could read that as, blessed is he who not only knows what is written in this letter, but also heeds what it says and treasures it as a thing of great value, because the time is near. Now, what we've been reading about is specifically addressed to the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ. But I want to say that I believe that this applies to any reading of the Scripture. That we read what it says to the point where we know what it says. And sometimes we don't understand what it says until we read something somewhere else. Like when we read where Dan really is versus where sometimes we know it's there, but we don't put them together, and then the understanding comes. And then let us heed to that which we have come to an understanding. Once we understand it, we obey. And finally, let's value and treasure these things. And this verse tells us God will bless it.